What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back today with another Friday live stream where we have a nice little discussion about whatever interesting topic I've come up with for the week. And this week is no different. We'll be talking about a tool called Logseq that I've been taking a look at for a little while now, and I think it's pretty interesting. And I think we'll be able to have a nice discussion about what it means and how it relates to you if you are an Emacs user. So I'd like to say hello to everybody who is here right now. Eric, Aria, Apple Castaway, Adrian, ADE, Kevin, Casper, Appenzel, Sean Doyle, Amalvadia, Valentino, Thomas, Daigo, Emil. Nice to see you all here. A lot of friendly, familiar faces. Flip. So, updates. So, I know I've said this before, but regular videos are going to start back next week. I've sort of carved out some space for myself because I put the Flux Harmonic streams on hold for a little while because I felt like I needed to take a different approach with that. So it's giving me some extra time, and we're going to get back to regular System Crafters videos starting next week. I'm not going to, because you can only talk about Emacs so long and you need to get a little bit bored. So we're going to be talking about some other things soon. Sway being one of those. Sway and Wayland in general. And also we may start talking more about tools like the one today, Logseq, where it's more about personal workflow, knowledge management, etc. Also even relating back to org roam. So a lot of cool stuff we'll be talking about soon, and I'm really excited to get back into it. Hello also to Sotiris and James, Bill, Daniel, nice to see you. All right, so the topic for today is Logseq better than org roam. Once again, sort of a, incendiary title, but we're just going to take a look at Logseq and just sort of see what it's all about and see how it relates to what we've been talking about so far on this channel. So I've been experimenting with an interesting tool called Logseq for the past week, and like I'm repeating myself, since it has some similarities and relationships to Emacs, I thought it'd be interesting for us to take a look at it. And if you're new to this channel, which maybe some of you are, consider subscribing, because we're going to be talking about tools like this and also just general practices and techniques for personal workflow, knowledge management, etc., especially when it comes to more esoteric and interesting tools like Emacs, etc., as the year goes on. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, definitely this is a good place to be. Hello to Gun, Marduk, Case, the Krister, Eric. All right, so first of all, what is Logseq? It describes itself, or the website or the GitHub repo describes it as a privacy-first open source platform for knowledge management and collaboration. And that's a whole lot of stuff all at once, but basically it's a combination of an outliner and a networked knowledge database, but it has a lot of other interesting aspects to it. And if you are the type of person who likes open source or free software tools that give you a lot of flexibility, this actually does veer more toward that direction than a lot of other tools that it is inspired by. It is inspired by and also competes with tools like Notion, Workflowy or Dynalist, like the outliner style tools, Obsidian, which is another similar type tool, but Logseq has its own uniqueness that makes it stand out a little bit against Obsidian, and even Emacs org mode and org roam to some degree. So it sort of takes a lot of ideas from various different places and puts them together into a tool that's unique in the space and has some interesting properties that we'll take a look at a little bit. Yeah, I see you there, Case. First of all, an interesting aspect of it is that it is free software. It's licensed AGPL 3.0, or at least that's what the GitHub repository says. If you go to the GitHub repo, you can see that GitHub itself sees that it's AGPL. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze right now. But it does have that as the license in the repo, which is cool because it means that the actual code for this application is free software. So you can fork it and do whatever you want with it. So you know that at least what you have right now is free software. I mean, at some point in the future, they could decide they wanted to change the license, and they have every right to do that. But at least for now, it is free software, which is great. It is kind of interesting in the tools that they use to develop it. I think part of it is written in Clojure, and I think it may have some sort of like Java backend stuff as well for some of the database interaction that it does. Also, it seems to use OCaml somehow. I don't exactly know how they've worked that into the thing, unless they like compiled a native module from OCaml and then loaded it into Clojure. Not sure, but Kind of interesting, the whole tool set here. They also use DataScript, which if you've done any work in the Clojure space, this is kind of like an immutable database, which is pretty interesting in its own right. So it's got a lot of interesting aspects to it. And if you are the type of person who likes tinkering with Lispy languages and you want to contribute to an open source project, this could be an interesting one to take a look at, especially if you're interested in Clojure, which I know a lot of people who I've talked to in this community are sort of interested in Clojure. So there's a lot of more information about Logseq on the repo, but a better way to sort of get your bearings in Logseq is just to sort of install the app and load it up, because it actually has a tutorial that it will take you through in the app as soon as you install it. So on that note, to install this app, if you're a Linux user, you can actually install it through Flatpak, which is great for Geeks users because you don't have to worry about, how am I going to get this program that's probably using Electron or something like that to run on my machine. Well, you don't have to worry about that because you can just install it through Flatpak and let Flatpak do all the work. And that works for anybody else who's using another distro that supports Flatpak. They may have a snap for that, like for the Snapcraft thing from Ubuntu. But if you go to the releases page, you can see that they have a zip file for Linux, and they also have an app image, which is basically a file you can download and just run directly. I won't get into the details of app image, but it's pretty interesting. And also for other platforms like Windows, Mac OS, and even Android. So there's an Android build of this, which means you can use it on mobile if you want to. I did install the APK on my phone, and it seems to work fine. I haven't tried to sync notes between it and my computer yet, but that is something that you can do, which is great. And I believe there also is an iOS build. Let's see, Logseq iOS. You may be able to install that on the App Store. Yeah, so if you have an Apple device, then you can go to the App Store and install Logseq that way. So you do have quite a lot of options for using this app, which is great because any type of personal knowledge management app or task management app, if you can't use it on mobile, it really sort of handicaps your ability to get the most use out of the stuff that you've put into it, which is something I have a problem with Emacs a lot of the time because I've written so much stuff in org mode and org roam, and it's not very easy to get access to that same stuff on mobile. You can use apps like Orgzly or Borg, but personally I just feel like they don't have the functionality that I'm looking for, and Logseq is more similar to what I have in mind when I actually want to use a mobile app for managing my personal information. ADE says, by the way, I tried to install Logseq from the AUR, but it didn't work for me. Yeah, there's various reasons why that could be, but if you try to install it from Flatpak and FlatHub, like if you go to FlatHub, you can find Logseq there. So that might be another way to install that. I'm not sure. I would guess that FlatHub or Flatpak is on Arch or Arc, but I don't know. Usually it's easier to install desktop apps through Flatpak or Snap because everything just sort of works. Even on Geeks, which is great. Also, it's got a lot of traction. There's a lot of people interested in this. There's content being created on the internet, YouTube, blog posts, etc. There's a lot of high-profile users. In fact, a lot of those, or a few of those high-profile users have even gone to the extent to help Logseq raise 4.1 million to continue working on this, which is kind of strange if you think about it. I mean, congratulations to the people who make Logseq, but it's a little bit strange to see that there's like a free software tool that has gained 4.1 million in, is this angel funding or is this like VC funding? Either way, there's a lot of potential for this app to grow and a lot of like sort of central services for syncing information and whatnot to be built. Probably a lot of stuff around collaboration will be built with that funding, but you never know how priorities can change with funding, but we'll let the creators of Logseq show us what they want to do with it. But yeah, even the CEO of Shopify is kind of a fan, and yeah, a lot of people are interested in it right now. So it does have some mind share. So which means you have a lot of tools out there that you can use, or sorry, resources for learning, a lot of ideas on how to use it, etc., which is pretty cool. Let's see, first name, last name says. Just got in here. What would be the difference between Logseq and Obsidian as an alternative to Roam? Well, there are similarities. I haven't really used Obsidian very much. I installed it and I played around with it a little bit. And it is trying to solve a similar problem. You're basically trying to create a sort of a personal knowledge base or personal wiki with plain text files as the storage mechanism. But I think there are some core differences in the model of Logseq, which we'll go into in a bit, that make it stand out against Obsidian. All right, so interesting features. So you can store notes as plain text files. In fact, that's the way that the note information is stored, and it's marked down by default, which is fine because many people are very comfortable with Markdown. I've also sort of put the other important feature a little bit lower here because I was going to wait until later, but it's worth mentioning. You can actually save your notes files as org mode files as well. Now, the thing to know about this is that it is Markdown or org mode format, but there's some special stuff that Logseq is putting into these files, some special syntax for its own metadata or like embedding of other things that will show up in these files. So if you have tools that sort of depend on having a normal standard format for your notes files, they may choke on some of this stuff, but it's not super likely because it tries to put it in a way where it isn't too disruptive. So it is great that it's in plain text, but for a couple of reasons. One is that you have control over your data. If Logseq ever does something, excuse me, because they have all this huge funding now, they make changes to the app that you don't like, you still have your notes files and you can do whatever you want with them. You can port them to another program, or you can just use them as normal text files, whatever you want, which is great. Also, it means that you can check them into source control with Git. So if you want to back them up to a private Git repository somewhere, you can do that. That's something I'm planning to do. I mean, I've been meaning to do that with my org mode notes for a while. I'm just distracted with other things. I haven't put it together, but that is a very important aspect of this. There's probably other reasons why it's important as well. But I guess a third one I can think of is that you can also edit these same notes files in Emacs or in any other editor that you can edit a text file with. So if you needed to, you could do that. But you have to keep in mind that there may be extra stuff in those files that may make the editing experience a little bit less pleasant for you. We're going to take a look at what the actual files look like in a bit, so that you can see for yourself what how it stores information. So you'll get a chance to see what it looks like. Let's see. So it also supports user-authored plugins with a built-in plugin marketplace, which is good if you consider the fact that this is not Emacs. It's a separate program, and if you want to have certain kinds of behavior that the authors of Logseq had not anticipated, then having an extensibility model and a way for you to install community extensions is awesome, because it does give you a way to put in new functionality that you might need. So when you start thinking about the comparison between this and Emacs or any other sort of highly flexible tool, you can see that there is some possibility of porting over certain pieces of functionality if you do happen to like Logseq enough to use it over something like Emacs. It also means that you can write plugins yourself, and from what I've seen, just sort of at like a brief glance, it isn't super hard to do that. So if you like hacking on things, especially if you like hacking on Clojure or ClojureScript, this could be something you could spend some time on. Also, you can we'll talk about the actual model of how Logseq stores information or how it thinks of information, but there's sort of two components to how it stores information. One is like the page, and one is the block. And basically a page is composed of blocks. So you have the ability to embed or either link to or embed pages and blocks in other pages. So it's something that you don't really see in org mode, because you can make links to things, which is great, it's fine. But you can't really say, I want to take one paragraph from this other document and then link it into another document that I'm working on so I can see it and maybe have it there as reference. Logseq does give you the ability to do that, which is kind of interesting for various reasons, and we'll try to get into that a little bit later. There's also backlink references, something that you've seen in org Roam if you watch the org Roam videos on this channel, where if you have one document that has a link to another document, on that second document that you've linked to, if you go to its page and open up the view that shows the backlinks, you can actually see any of the documents that have linked to it, which can be very useful for building this knowledge graph where you look at one topic and you see what other topics might be related sort of in your own knowledge graph that you created. It could give you sort of Inspiration and also connections between ideas you didn't think about before. A lot of that stuff is sort of core ideas of Zettelkasten, and it can be found in that book, How to Take Smart Notes. Is that what it's called? By Sunki Ahrens. I think I'm pronouncing these things right. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've talked about these things. So it does have those capabilities of like graph-based knowledge. Also, there is a graph view where you can see like kind of a graph of all the nodes of knowledge. Especially you can scope it down to a specific page and see, you know, the connections to other pieces of knowledge or other pages in your graph, which is pretty useful. If you use org-roam, you don't get that by default. You can install the org-roam UI package in Emacs to get something similar, but this is something that's built into Logseq by default, and you do get the benefit of that. The book title is correct. Thank you. Thanks for checking that. Also, I mentioned before that since it's plain text, you can check in your notes to Git. Well, Logseq actually knows how to auto-commit that for you, and you can actually change a setting so that it will just, you know, on some interval auto-commit your notes to a Git repo. I don't know if it automatically pushes it though. I'll have to take a look at that in just a second, but pretty cool that it does that. It shows that it's made for people who actually, you know, use more advanced tools and workflows. So I like the fact that they have little features like this for people like us in mind. All right, so let's see. And I mentioned before, you can save notes as org mode files, which is cool. Anything else that I'm missing? I haven't really been looking at the chat for a moment. Let's see if I missed anything in here. Eric Lundstedt has had a few different comments about the Logseq. I've been using Logseq through Emacs primarily. I've even written some eLisp to get it comfortable. That's cool. Casper says, have you tried Emacs on Termux? Yeah, I've tried a few times to get a comfortable situation with Emacs and Termux. It's certainly possible, but it's not, I don't know, it's a little bit kludgy and doesn't feel very smooth to me. Some people were talking about the configuration file format for Logseq, which is actually the Eden format, or EDN, which is basically like a closure style data syntax. It looks basically like Lisp. So that's kind of cool. D. Liu says, can we use Vim like key bindings in Logseq? Yeah, I think there's a plugin for that. You can install a plugin from the marketplace, and we'll take a look at the marketplace in just a second. Let's see. Okay, Eric says it does not automatically push to GitHub. That's fine. I mean, I guess you could have your own script or something that would do an automatic push to the repo, but it's nice that it does do auto commits. Aurora says, I haven't tried Logseq, but I don't know if any tool can reach the customizability of Emacs. Yes. Hardly any tool can reach the customizability of Emacs, but there's something to be said for the polish of a tool that's like made for a specific purpose. You know, like if you try to use Emacs in org mode and org-roam long enough, there's probably, you know, at least 5 things you've found that don't really work exactly how you want them to. And that's not to say that Emacs or org-roam have anything wrong with them. It's just that because of the level of customization and the way that Emacs sort of works, and the fact that there's no good external tools that also use the same formats, it's kind of limiting in some ways, especially whenever you try to use this information on mobile devices. So that's the problem that I've had primarily with using Emacs. I mean, Emacs is awesome until you try to do things until you want to use Emacs related stuff outside of Emacs, I guess. Okay, so let's take a look. I've got Logseq installed here. This is basically what it looks like whenever you first install it. It's basically just like a whole, it almost looks like a document you're looking at. It just pops you directly into this page. And the thing that you'll see here is that it says that the current date. The primary view of Logseq is what they call the journal view. So if you pop open this little sidebar here, you'll see journals, flashcards, graph view, all pages. So if you click journals, it goes to this journal view. And the purpose of the journal view is to give you a place to sort of just dump any thoughts or tasks or notes that you have during the day in a sort of sequential form. I think that's where the name Logseq comes from, because it's like a daily log, a sequence of notes, that kind of thing. Personally, I think it's not necessarily the best name, but it's unique enough that people remember it, so not so bad. So right off the bat, you can see that there's kind of headings here. You can zoom into certain nodes. So any of these things that have a little button by it here is kind of a node, and this is where the whole outliner thing comes in. This is an outline that you're looking at. Each of these lines is its own little node in the outline of this document, which is kind of weird if you are used to org mode or any other note-taking tool that is not an outliner focused tool, because normally you're used to just writing a document, but here you're writing a document that's comprised of like tree nodes the whole way through. And if I were to click on this little node by the 2 here, and you would go into a zoomed view where you only see this. It's almost like narrowing in org mode, but it sort of gets really specific on a subtree inside of your document, which can be pretty cool if you're writing notes and you want to kind of focus on just a subset of something. If you're used to writing more like prose, like I am, when you write in ideas down in org mode, doing it this way feels weird at first, but then you sort of realize that what it allows you to do is you can write like a paragraph effectively, but then you go under that paragraph and you start writing out, now why is it doing that? Okay, it's because there's a numbered reference in there. Let's go under this one. You can press enter and tab and then go and start writing like sort of sub ideas and fleshing out the ideas to let your thought process kind of go through some iterations. And I find it to be pretty useful because whenever you're writing text as prose inside of org mode or any other just normal document type, oftentimes you're thinking to yourself, I really need to kind of like think a little bit more about this thing that I'm saying right now. And I don't want to just write it in line into the document because it doesn't belong in the document. But here you can just sort of drop it below and sort of just go as far down, nesting into your sort of, idea thought process as you need. Also, you can add to-do items directly under a given node. Now, obviously in org mode, you can do the same thing, but because org mode is more like a document where you have headings, sometimes you don't want another heading under another heading whenever you just want to just store some information there. So it's a different way of thinking about writing for your sort of personal knowledge and also just, jotting down ideas. But I think there are some benefits to this approach whenever you get comfortable doing it. And that's kind of why I'm interested to continue using it for a bit, just to see if it helps my thought process while writing, because it already has done that a little bit in the week that I've been using it so far. ADE says, oh no, solarized dark theme. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that either. But if you click this little ... here, there's a themes option. There's no extra themes by default, but when we look at the marketplace a little bit later, you'll see that you can install themes and put whatever you want in there. So it's pretty nice you have the ability to do that. Okay, so like I said, this is kind of a tutorial. They tell you some things about Logseq. They say that you can click to edit any block. Here you kind of see that this looks kind of like org mode, right? They have like the hash plus and then some, I don't know what you call this, word that says what the syntax block is. And they call this a tip block. So if you put your cursor back out of this node, it kind of changes the display of it, which is cool. You have the ability to have these little tip blocks interspersed inside of your document. Eric says install the dev theme. I'll give that one a shot. I think I'm using a different one on my Logseq install, but we'll see what it looks like. All right, so let's create a page called How to Take Dummy Notes. If you see here, this is a link. I don't know how visible this is on the stream, but whoops, you can see that. Wow. You can see that there's kind of like little brackets around the side of this How to Take Dummy Notes, which basically means it's a link to another node inside of the graph or the set of documents that you have. You can click on it to go to that node, which is cool. They have little navigation buttons up here at the top where you can click to go back. I believe that the control square bracket is also bound to navigation keys. So if you want to go back and forward, it's pretty easy to do that. Also, if you hover over a note, you'll see that it does a little pop-up that gives you a preview of what that note has in it, which can be nice if you don't really want to jump into another note right now. You just kind of want to see what the gist of it is, which is great. Now, let's see, shift click to open it in the right sidebar. Now, this is a pretty cool feature of this program. If you hold shift and hit click, it will open the document in the sidebar here where you can kind of, reference this file while you're working on other things. Now, I think if I were to find another link, let's see if there's another one here. There's no other links in this page. There's this one, but I think that's an external link. Let's just make one. How about I'm going to use square bracket, system crafters. And we already get like the suggestion to create a new page. So I'm going to press enter, I think. Yeah. So it automatically just like creates a link to a page. I don't think the page exists yet, but if I click on, come on now. If I click on system crafters, it will go to that page and it will give us this backlink. Like I mentioned before, there are backlinks so that when you link to another page, if you go look at that page, you will see the place where you're linking to it from and any other location, which is kind of nice because you can create pages that are just sort of like a topic. You don't have to write anything in the page, but you can use that to link from other files and then go to your topic page to see all the things that are related to it, which is pretty cool. All right, so now let's do the thing that I wanted to do, which is to test to see what happens when I hit shift click again. So if I hit shift click again, come on now. I think I selected everything. Shift click. This pop-up is killing me. Shift click. All right, so this does what I think it does, which is kind of a very useful feature of this. If you shift click, you can have multiple pages here visible at the same time. So if you are writing something and you want to cross-reference some other notes that you have, you can do that by shift clicking on links and seeing them over here in the pop-up pane. And you can also make this pane hide to go away if you want to, and then bring it back up. There's a hotkey for that, which is TR, which is kind of like evil mode a little bit. If you're not currently editing anything on the page, if you hit TR, it will toggle that right pane. TL will toggle the left pane. But if you click in a node and you start typing, I don't know if it's called a node, you obviously TR doesn't do anything. But if you were to press escape to jump out of that and then press TR again, then it pops the side panel up. Hey, Gavin. So there are some pretty nice key bindings here, and it's fairly reminiscent of Emacs, which tells you that the people who wrote this program are certainly familiar with Vim and Emacs. So you're in good company here. The person who wrote this stuff kind of knows what you're looking for and can help you out with having a good workflow. Also, if you're like me and you're used to using Control-G all the time, you can also make it so that Control-G will jump you out of one of these blocks, which can be pretty useful. In fact, let's take a look at that really quick. If you go to the ... here, whatever you call that, and then click settings, it pulls up a little settings view here. Now you can check for updates. I don't know if this works with the Flatpak version of the program, but if you have downloaded the program from somewhere for like Windows or Mac OS, it probably can check for updates for you. Maybe on Snap, not sure how all that works, but hopefully it works. There's also theme modes. There's like a light and dark theme that come built in. You can click light to do that and be blinded. Or use the built-in dark theme, or install another theme later, which we'll take a look at. I mentioned before that the configuration file is actually sort of a Lispy format. If you click on edit config.eden here, we'll pull up a little built-in editor which has like a closure-like syntax for configuring the program, which I haven't really looked at this very much yet, but you can do quite a lot in here, and you can also check in this file to source control if you want to. So another way that this is a kind of I guess you could call a system crafting focus or hacker focus tool where you can check in your configuration to source control, which is nice. So if I go back, no, it doesn't work like that. Hold on one second, sorry. I'm being attacked by allergies today. So also you can edit the CSS file for the theme if you want to tweak certain things. I believe this is probably just like an overlay on top of what is already being used from the theme. So if you wanted to change certain things like the font or the size of certain text, you could do that pretty easily. Also, keyboard shortcuts. If you click this, you'll get a whole view of all the keyboard shortcuts in the program. Quite a lot of stuff in here. It also gives you a pretty good overview of what actions are available to you. Trick says ... is ellipsis. Yeah, that's true. And any of these, I think you can click on them to change the binding. So if you want to change any default key bindings, you can fully do that. So the thing that I mentioned before was called, where is it? It doesn't have a binding. Escape editing, which is not what you think it is. But if you click this, you can set it to Control-G if you're an Emacs user and you use Control-G a lot. Then if you go back into a document, let's go back to a real document. If I click inside this node and then hit Control-G, it will exit out of it. So that's one thing that could be nice for you if you are an Emacs fan and you have Control-G burned into your fingertips like I do. So what else? Some of those other 2-letter key bindings, you can change those as well here. There's even GA, GG, GF, etc. So definitely some Vim inspiration here on some of those 2-letter key bindings. Pretty cool. What else? A lot of other stuff here. Definitely worth going and checking all that out. It also reminds me that there is a command palette in this program. So kind of like Alt-X or Meta-X in Emacs gives you like the list of all commands, or maybe Control or Command-Shift-P in a tool like VS Code or other kind of IDEs will give you a whole command palette list. There is a similar thing in Logseq. Let me actually see. Do I remember what the key binding is for that? I don't think it's Control-Shift-P. Where is it? Control-Shift, not Control-Shift-A. Searching the current page. Anybody remember what the key binding is for that? Blah, blah, blah. Well, let's see. Control-Shift-P. Is it not that? Oh, it is that. Okay, so they're following the same standard. Cool. So, type of command. You can do a lot of stuff here. Toggling or maybe new. Nothing for new. Zoom. Obviously, there's zoom. Let's see. What else does it have in here? Open. Yeah, open in another window, etc., etc. Copy current file. So there's any of the commands that you might want to find should be here. Though when I type things like new, I don't actually see like a new page command, which sort of like is surprising, honestly. Hi, Krishna. Yeah, it has been a long time. So anyway, you could definitely find a lot of the commands you might want to know about in this program by going to the command palette with Control-Shift-P. So let's go back to that main document. Is there anything else interesting here? So they do support tags, but the funny thing about tags is a tag is basically just an alternate syntax for a page. It's not a separate thing. If you click on a tag, it will actually take you to a page named dummy in this case. The tag is called #dummy. And you can write whatever you want in here, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. Because if you like to use tags as one way to categorize certain notes or pieces of information, you know, a lot of times you're thinking, well, you know, it's cool that I can tag this, but I can't actually store any information on the tag itself. Well, in Logseq, you can actually do that. In the tag page, you can type whatever you want, and you can see backlinks or linked references to where that tag was used. So if you ever want to go take a look at everything that you've tagged as #Emacs or tasks or whatever, you can go to the page for that tag and take a look at all the linked references. There's also something interesting about this, the way that linked references are shown. There's a filter view where you can say, let's see, I think this which pages are showing up there. So if you wanted to exclude certain pages from showing up in this linked reference list, you could do that. I thought it had some other stuff in there too, but maybe I'm just remembering something else. But pretty cool that you can have information assigned to tags and have whatever notes you want here in a tag. Now the way to think about this is that because they're effectively the same, like a link to a page and a tag are effectively the same whenever it comes to storing this information. Really the main way that they're different is that a tag cannot have spaces in it, whereas a link to another page can have spaces in it. So that could be one way that you decide to use one versus the other. The syntax is also simpler. You don't have to type like 2 square brackets to open up a link to a page. But I think probably you're going to want to use this in the way that it's intended, where a tag is a tag and a page is a page. And even though they have some similarities, you are using it for your own sort of conceptual understanding and organization. Also, you may see here there are to-do list items. So by default, they have a very interesting way of representing to-dos. The default sort of states, just like org mode has task states, Logseq has task states as well, and it's either now or later by default. There's also done, but I think it's this little checkbox here that indicates done. So at first I was like, okay, cool. So I would have a task called, a task that's set to now, the one that I want to work on right now, and then the one that's marked as later, I'll work on it later. I just sort of filter based on that. It's not exactly like that though. Actually what's happening is when you change a task state to now, it starts clocking that task and it will keep track of how long you've been working on it. So if you want to do time tracking on tasks, you would actually use these for that purpose. And let me check the settings. There is a setting for this. Is it in advanced? Let's see. Time tracking. So it's turned on by default. I don't know why it wasn't on for this one, but maybe it's because it's the tutorial. But if I click now, let it sit there for a couple seconds. I think if I click now again, you'll see here there's a little time over here where, excuse me, it says how long I had that in the now state. So it's not exactly like what you would have in org mode, where you have just a task or to-do state where it's either to do or next or waiting or done or whatever. There's sort of two default states. However, I think it is possible to do other states. Like for instance, if I were to drop down to the next line, I'm gonna show you another feature here. Hit the, is it / key? It gives you kind of like a command list that you can type in line. And the task states also are here. So there's like now and later. There's also to do and doing, which are effectively the same as now or later. It's just a matter of whether you like to do or doing better than now or later. Then there's done and waiting and canceled. So there's a few of those things that you can do, which are, like if you're waiting for somebody else to be able to get unblocked for a task, then you can have a waiting state. So waiting for Gavin to make a video on Notepad in Windows. Okay. All right, so now we're waiting on Gavin for that. So Gavin, I think you should get done with that so I can make this a to-do state. So also you can click the button on the side here, which will make a task done. Also, you might notice that there are priorities on tasks. So you sort of like in org mode, you can have like A, B, or C priority on a task. And it's kind of funny, you click on A as a priority and it takes you to a page. So apparently priorities also have their own pages. I'm not sure why, but apparently it will backlink tasks that have the A priority. So I guess that's a way to filter tasks by priority if you wanted to do that. So what else? There's other interesting stuff about tasks. You can put deadlines and scheduled dates on tasks like on org mode as well. So if I were to say / scheduled, it will give me a little time picker, date picker. I don't know why it's not showing the whole thing, but you can say that the task has a scheduled date or time, and you can add repeaters too. So it's very similar to the way that it works for org mode in that regard. Now, I don't know what happens. I think that if you have a task scheduled on a given date, it may show up in the day for the main log. So like I mentioned at the very beginning of this journals view is sort of like your main view into your notes. You're supposed to come to your journals view every day and sort of write down your thoughts, but you also may see things show up in this page, like linked tasks. Oh, even here, you see this? Scheduled and deadline. You get this list of scheduled and deadline tasks for today. If you scheduled a task for today, it will show up in this list, sort of like a backlink. So if you schedule something in the future, when that day finally arrives, you'll actually see this list of tasks saying that you have that task scheduled for the day. So it gives you some of that same functionality that you would get from the agenda view in org mode, but it's kind of a nice way to represent it. You don't have to think about it at all. It just shows up on the right day. And you can also change the scheduled date at any time. You can click on that date and move it anywhere. So, I mean, nice to have that functionality. This kind of functionality usually only comes way later in the life of a particular note-taking program. I remember, excuse me, it took a long time before Workflowy ever got this. I think Dynalist had it pretty early on. I think Notion also has it, but it's kind of cool to have the ability to have recurring tasks that show up in a way that you will see them. So interesting design. I kind of like it. Anything else interesting there? Obviously, you can embed videos and stuff. That's not very interesting. I mean, it's useful, but not a huge breakthrough feature. Excuse me. So that's great. We've got this journal view. We can make links to other pages. We can navigate to those pages. We can add other links and other information, whatever. That's fine. If I were to click on this hamburger menu here and click all pages, you'll see that there are some other stuff in here, like the how to take dummy notes page, which I think is part of the tutorial. You can kind of see that there's a page there for this. Let me actually take a look at the graph view. If I click this sidebar, there's this page graph link at the top. And if I click that, it will give me the graph for this particular page to say which things are linked to it. So if you had sort of a wider knowledge graph, you should be able to see it that way. There's also the graph view here, which will show you the graph view of all your documents. But it's not actually showing me anything right now, which I think is interesting. You got to turn journals on here. And built-in pages. Okay. So it does distinguish between the pages for things like task states or priorities. It considers them built in. So if I turn that off, you won't see those, which is kind of nice. But you can see links to things like system crafters, the dummy tag page, the dummy notes page, etc. And if you only want to see the relationships between pages you've created, then you can do that too. So if I were to go here and say video series, Emacs from scratch, Emacs desktop environment, and let's say I navigate to Emacs from scratch. This is a YouTube series. I think it should make those links already. So if I click graph view, then you see that there are connections here. System Crafters goes to these two nodes, and then this also goes to YouTube. If I go to the YouTube page, my YouTube channels are System Crafters and then Flux Harmonic. Okay, and if I go back to graph view, then you'll see that I've got some interesting connections between things now. 2 pages that link to YouTube, and then there's connections between all of them. You can search on the graph, I think. So if I were to type in Emacs, then it will show me any of the nodes that have Emacs, and these two are not connected, obviously. What else is in here? You can take out orphan pages, which may not be super useful. I think that this will become a lot more useful over time. So not super useful unless you have like a lot of pages and you want to see sort of clustering in your notes. But I personally haven't found a whole lot of use for that. I would be very interested to hear from people who have found use in looking at these graph views. But it's nice to have it built in as a part of the functionality. Ashra says, the graph reminds me of org-roam UI open, but they all copy lately from each other. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. And flashcards. This is not something that I personally use, but if you are studying a certain topic, like if you're in high school or college, or maybe if you are learning a language, things like that, they have the ability to create flashcards where you can sort of, have the cards shown to you, and you can pick which is the right answer and, train yourself with that kind of thing. I don't really use that functionality, but it can be useful if you do need that kind of stuff, I believe. Mikhail says, Emacs has Nobiot's org transclusion, which can help with creating using block references. Yes, that's true. I haven't tried to use it yet. I looked at the README page, and it does seem like something that could be pretty useful for achieving something like what you can do with Logseq. And since I mentioned that, we might as well go ahead and give that a shot to show you what that looks like. So let's say I go to the System Crafters page, and I say, okay, I want to have my, well, here's what I can do. I can go to YouTube, the YouTube page. In fact, if I press, I believe it's Control K, then I can type YouTube and just jump to that page. That's one nice way to do this. Also, if you type Control K and start typing a search term, it actually will search the text of all of your notes as well. So it can be a way for you to find things you are looking for. And also you can find blocks that have a certain string at the first part of the heading. So that can be useful in a few different ways. All right, so I'm in the YouTube page. What I'm gonna do here is, let's see, my active video series. So I can go in here and type /embed. So I can either embed, I can embed things like tweets and YouTube videos, etc., but I can also embed a page or a block. So in this case, I'm going to embed a page, and I'll say System Crafters. And if I move out of that block, now it basically pulls the entire content of the System Crafters page into this document, but it's not copying it. It's actually referencing that file and putting all the stuff in here. You can even edit the text of it. So if you were to say, just video on here, and I click on System Crafters to go back to it, you can see that the file has been edited. So it gives you this ability to link pieces of documents together, or even whole documents together, and edit them in one holistic view. So it gives you, some ability to really customize your workflow for writing or researching or task management, a lot of things like that, which is kind of interesting. It's a different way to do things. So let's see, video series. Now what I'll do is I'll jump out of, or I'll click back in right about here, I think. How do I get rid of this? Whoops, that's not what I want to do. Yeah, if I click backspace, okay. So you can see there's a little syntax for this here, which you can type in directly if you want. I'm gonna go embed just that one node now for the video series. So if I type in /em, select the block embed, I'm gonna type in the name of the node that I want. And this is gonna search across all of the individual blocks or nodes that I have in my document. So if I type in video series, I can find that video series heading inside of the system crafter's document. And then when I click out, it will just have this subtree of that document. And it can be edited in the same way. You can change whatever you want here. You can add items to it if you wanted to. Like, let's say, craft your system with GNU Geeks. So whatever you want to do, you can do it. Pretty interesting. Whenever you have functionality like this that's kind of super flexible, it takes a little while for it to sort of digest and for you to understand how you might be able to make use of it. And I'm still not fully there yet, to be honest. Like I've only just started to think of how I might use this stuff. One of the ways I think it might be really useful, let's say if I go to a project page, like let's say Mesh, the language that I'm working on, I can have a tasks section and I can create a to-do, like if I do /to-do, and then say implement bytecode file bundling. I can also, I could schedule that for a day, or I could just leave it as it is. And on any day that I want to work on the Mesh project, I can go to the journals section on that current day, and then I can go to any section and be like, okay, here's my tasks for the day, task for the day. And then I could say I'll link to Mesh. But then I'll also go under this, and then I will embed that block. So I can even type in the syntax myself. Embed tasks. And then I can find the tasks block from Mesh, and then I can see it right here in line in my current day without having to sort of jump back and forth between the tasks in my project pages and then what's here. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's basically what Org Agenda is doing. It's like going over all your org files and pulling all the tasks in, and it does it all for you. You don't have to go manually do all this. That's true. It is better whenever you have something that can take care of that for you. Maybe Logseq has a way to do that, but I don't think it does at the moment. Anybody who's more familiar with it could probably tell me. But this is kind of interesting. And let me tell you another way I've been thinking about using this as well. Instead of just pulling in the entire tasks list every time, what you might do instead is have kind of like a second level under your task, which is sort of like your sub-projects of a project. So let's see, how about make this ship a single binary with no code dependencies. Let's say single mesh program binary. And then this would actually be a sub task within that. So if you wanted to work on a specific sub project in a day, because obviously you're not going to work on every single task for that project. Maybe you only want like a sub project or even something, a level below that. You could link only this part into your daily journal. So I can take this part out. Let's see, how can I do that? Ah, good. There's a little edit button there. So if I take this, wow. Okay, let's do that again. If I take this little GUID out, which is, if you use Org Roam, this might look a little familiar to you. They're using IDs to identify nodes. So embed, I could type in, what was it? What did I call it? Let's see, implement, program. There we go. So I just typed in program and it found the right one. I clicked that, and then I have that subtree of tasks that I just pull in here. So I feel like this is kind of a useful way to use the task feature here without having to do things like schedules or deadlines for tasks. And also without having to like copy tasks from another way you could do this is you could just every day you just write down directly whatever task you want to do, like, delete the compiler, whatever. And you could do that, but then every next day you would have to go take these tasks, move them to the next day, and then keep pushing them forward into the future, which is a little bit of a headache. So if you wanted to have a way to pull in a certain subset of tasks for a project for the current day and not have to worry about moving things around later, then this kind of embedding approach could be good for that. Another way that embedding could be useful is if, like, let's say you're writing a book and you're trying to pull together various different ideas that you've written in maybe short little snippets, maybe in your journal or maybe in topic pages or elsewhere. You could have a sort of like, chapter 1 page you've created in Logseq, and then you can pull in those embeds of blocks from other pages, and then you can sort of reorder them to sort of, change the flow of the book. And I wonder if you try to use the export functionality here, if that would actually export everything. So let's try that. If you click on the ellipsis here, there is an export graph button. I don't know if that's like for the whole graph though. Here, let's click this. I want to click on the actual May 6th page, which will take me to the page, not the whole journal list. Then if I click this, export page. Now, it will give me a text view, and it does look like it actually exports the embedded text. So kind of cool if you're trying to write documents or write a larger work like a research paper or a book. You can embed those blocks, and then when you try to export it to another format, it will actually keep that. So kind of cool to have that possibility. Not only can you put it in text, you can export to OPML or HTML, which could be useful for various different things. Maybe OPML if you wanted to process this stuff further without having to parse the text. And in fact, you can change certain things too, like, excuse me, all these brackets around everything. I think you can turn those off by clicking that checkbox and remove emphasis. Yeah, it takes off all of these sort of emphasis texts as well. So if you needed to, let's say, write an email or write some documentation that needed to be given to someone else later, you could export it to text and take a lot of that stuff out so it wouldn't be visible to someone you're sending it to. Excuse me. And you can copy it to clipboard pretty easily. So that's one way you can export things. Also, there seems to be a way to publish pages. I don't know that it's built into Logseq, but there are plugins that make it easy to export or publish your Logseq notes as a website. So a lot of people have asked me how to publish their org Roam notes as a website, and a lot of people do that, or maybe not a lot, but there are people who do that. So if you wanted to do it, you could do it with org Roam, or you could do it with Logseq also. So, your mileage may vary. Gavin says, you can't see upcoming events as a schedule, can you? I don't think so. I'm not sure. Eric says you can write snippets in the config. Yeah, there are templates, which we should look at. Okay. So Ashraz has a point here that I forgot to mention. There is actually a query syntax that you can use to find tasks. And I had thought about that too as a thing to put on your main page. So let's actually take a look at, whoops, go away. So if you click on the little, or right click on the little thing here, does it say it? There's a few little things you can do here. Make a car, blah, blah, blah. Slash query. Now there's a little question mark here, which will give you some examples, which is kind of nice. You can query for tags, you can query for pages, you can do full text search, and you can also do tasks with a particular state between a specific time range. And I don't know if that also includes tasks that have been clocked within a particular time range, or if it's just things that are due within a particular time range, but you could do that if you want to. So here's one thing we do. Let's do query task. What is it? How did I put those? To do. All right. Task to do. If I get out of that block, it actually gives me the listing of all those tasks that are marked as to do. So that's like a dynamic view, and you can put that anywhere. You could create a page called tasks that you go look at, and then you can put this query in to make all those pop up. However, because of the way it displays the results, it is a little bit noisy. Like, you've got all this extra context information, and I don't know if it's deduplicating things. So I've got this like delete the compiler. I've also got ship a single mesh program binary. I think if I expand it, you can see the thing that's below that, but let's see. If I go into mesh, add another task under this, like let's see. What do I want to say here? Add getting started documentation. Let me take that little thing out there. Okay, so now I've got another to do. If I go back into the journal and look at this page, okay, so it does coalesce, which is good. It doesn't show you multiple entries for every single to do from that page. It just sort of gathers them all together. So this can be a way to find all to-dos that you have across all of your different files without having to do a more complex kind of agenda view, which is nice. And also, as you can see, it automatically updates based on things that I've done. I went and added that new to-do, and now this view is automatically updated. There's also a table view, which could be useful if you have properties set on things. It's kind of like how in org mode you can set properties on headings. You can set properties on individual nodes. I'm not sure. Can I do it here? I think there's a syntax you use for it. Like, let's say effort 5. No, it didn't work, did it? Let's see. There's a help thing here. Where is it? Help. Probably this is going to take me to the docs page. If I click documentation, it's probably going to open it in, yeah, of course. Okay, let's go to Firefox to do this. So the docs page, docs.logseq.com, has quite a lot of information that might be useful if you're trying to figure out how to use this. Excuse me. So a lot of things like, you know, how to do a lot of certain things like create your own graphs, linking, aliases. What was it that I was looking for? Properties. Let me search for properties here. So properties. Block properties. So it has kind of like a property syntax. How do you get into it? Oh, is it colon colon? Let's try that. I'm going to go back to my document right here. So effort colon colon 5. Okay, so that turns it into a property. And let's actually make this a to-do. If I click, oh, I think control enter makes it into a to-do item. Let's see, can I put it to, wow, let's just edit this. To-do. That's nice, you can actually change the text. So this got updated now. This that's it item is now showing here. Set properties. It doesn't actually show that property in the list, but I think I can query based on that. So if I go back to the query, can I edit? Wow. All right, so there usually is an edit button. For some reason, it's not. Hey. Weird. Yeah, I get that it's trying to, here, can I do this? I don't see a button to edit the query. Anybody else see it? See you, Sean. Thanks for coming. Table view. It has clock information, clock time. That's cool. Anyway, let's do another one. How about this? Excuse me. We'll create another query here. Curly brace, query. Task to do. Now, yeah, I probably made a mistake not finishing that. Can I double click? Can I right click? Oh, can I press enter? Maybe enter is what's going to do it. Okay, I'll have to look into that. But I want to see that query syntax again. So let me do it one more time. /query. Now, give it to me right there. I don't know why it's not showing up. I may have to restart the program. /query. Hover. Yeah, okay. So properties, property key value. Now I guess you can't do like a property range. Maybe you can, not sure. EBN says, can it run source code like with org babel? I think that it can, but not by default. I believe that there's probably an extension you can install that does that. Anyway, Maybe there's a way to do filtering based on things like property values. I don't really know, but that would be a nice thing to have as well. It would put you more in the line with what OR can do. And I think queries are kind of one of the things that people say they don't really use enough in this. Oh, there's also functions, and I don't know what that does, but there's definitely some advanced stuff you can do. I think they have a lot of information about queries in the docs. So if you go check out the doc page, let's take a look at this really quick. Querying specific pages blocks. Oh. So you can make queries that are like Eden. Wow, okay. So that's like almost like a database query even. So if you wanted to do that, you could. Special properties, etc., etc. Okay, cool. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with properties. If I go back to contents, what was I looking for? Advanced queries. So queries, advanced queries. Okay, so if you click advanced queries, is that where we were just then? Wow. Okay, so basically you're doing data script queries. So if you've ever used data script, or as Tech Tamatar says, data log, then you can basically do whatever you want. And I think this is probably where extensions can have a lot of power, because with extensions, you can actually change the way that things are shown in the UI, and then use queries potentially to pull in people's information. So pretty cool. Christian says, is System Crafters the largest Emacs focused channel on YouTube? Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by Emacs focused. I mean, DistroTube talks about Emacs fairly often, but I guess I wouldn't say he's Emacs focused. Okay, anything else? Let me see what I had in my notes for what we want to do here. So, the thing about git auto commit, if I go back to Logseq here and go into the settings, let me see, why did it make the text small all of a sudden? Okay, click the ellipsis up here, settings, I think it's in version control, right? Enable git auto commit. You can view a page's edit history by clicking the 3 vertical dots in the top right corner and selecting check pages history. Logseq uses git for version control. So every 60 seconds, it will make commits to all of your files, and you can look at the history of the files in the program. Now, if I turn this on, I don't know if it automatically kicks in and starts calling into Git. Let me see if it, let's see, where is it? If I go into the page for May 6th, you have to go into the actual page for this, and then click the button and then check page history, file history, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I don't know exactly how that's supposed to look. Let's see, check page history. Let me change it a little bit first. Compiler. All right, so now, I don't know if it was gonna commit right now or if it's gonna take a little while, but, okay, so Duck says, I just discovered that if I have Logseq open, it will auto-commit changes done in Emacs. Well, that makes sense because it's sort of indiscriminate. It's just taking whatever changes to the file are currently there and committing them if the file has been changed. So if you don't want it doing that, then probably you shouldn't edit it in 2 programs at the same time. But probably you do want it to do that. Check page history. Okay, it probably hasn't committed yet. In fact, where is it saving this? I don't have the ability to open in a directory because I don't have like a file browser. I just use DRED for everything. So I don't think that's going to work. Yeah. Okay, so open page backups directory. Is there a backup directory? Sorry, if you hear crying in the background, my child is unhappy at the moment, apparently. Hey, Fade. Okay, so next on the agenda, what else? So how would I use it? So what I was saying before is basically what I've learned so far. So how I would personally use this and how I have been sort of using it so far is that I would go into Logseq. On the beginning of a new day, I would go to the journal page and then start just writing down like sort of like what my tasks are for the day, any ideas that I have that I haven't captured yet. So things like, you know, journal entries, etc. Now, when you capture things into the daily journal, you can either leave them there and then link them to other pages, and then you'll be able to find all that stuff again, which is kind of nice if you are typing in ideas that are sort of time bound. For instance, one thing that I commonly run into whenever I'm writing notes in my org roam or org mode or whatever, I'll have thoughts about a particular project or area that I'm responsible for, where I'm sort of, working through some problem or having ideas. And if you go and just change all the notes in your file for that specific topic, then you lose all the previous stuff that was there. Or maybe you make it confusing because you've got, old ideas and new ideas all together in the same document. You got to find some way to delineate between those. Having a commit history and a Git repo is one way that you can sort of guard against that, because if you delete the old stuff and then add the new stuff and then it commits, you can see the changes over time. But there is some value to having sort of your progression of thinking on a particular topic over time, I think. And having things written, or having a lot of your thinking written in the journal as opposed to in a page, could be a nice way to deal with that. Obviously, org roam, you can do the same thing, because in the org roam dailies function, it gives you this sort of ability to have daily notes. And if you link to things like my System Crafters page or YouTube page or whatever in my documents, I can see the backlinks for that. But in my experience, I didn't really use the backlinks so much in org roam. Maybe it's just because I never really got used to it, but the way that things are presented here makes it a little bit more obvious, the backlinks, and it makes it more useful. So maybe it's just me, but I feel like I would actually get the benefits that I'm looking for more easily with the sort of journal-focused approach here. I do believe that because your understanding and thinking about certain things is changing constantly, every day, basically, the more you think about things, the more ideas you have, and they sort of evolve over time. Having a sort of stream of all those ideas over time linked to the topics they're related to, especially because you can link a specific idea to more than one thing, you can get more benefit out of the things that you thought in the past compared to what you thought presently. So if I'm thinking about, like, let's say I'm typing a journal, I'm saying something like, today I'm thinking about what videos I want to make for System Crafters in the next month. I like to think more, or I like to play with Sway some more and explain how to create a cool configuration, including various Wayland apps that might be useful. Okay, so I just wrote something like that in my journal, and now if I go to like the Wayland page, I'll see that I was thinking about Wayland and writing about it on that day, and I have this sort of context where all of that is relevant. So kind of nice to have that. It all just gets indexed immediately. Like I said, obviously it's sort of like org roam, but it's just a smoother experience. And if you have the ability to use a mobile app that has exactly the same functionality, then you can do the same thing on your phone as well. So it could be pretty useful for that. Gavin says, did we cover if it has a capture feature? Not exactly like what you have with org mode, but there is a template feature. I should show that in a minute. Also, one thing that's interesting is the template feature can be used for your daily journals as well. So if you want to have a specific layout for your daily journal pages, not just for like writing like my diary, but like your task planning for the day, and maybe certain prompts you want for getting all the tasks or ideas that you have in your head down, you can make a template for your daily journal, and you can make templates that can be used anywhere. So maybe we should take a look at that right now, because it's actually kind of nice. I haven't really used it very much, but it is good. Let's see. Yes, Gavin says, wait, there's a phone version? Yeah, if you go to the GitHub page for Logseq and look at their releases page, there is an APK here for Android. And if you go on the iOS App Store, there is a build of Logseq there as well. So you do have the ability to use it on mobile. There is no service for syncing these things yet, but if you use something like SyncThing or anything else that allows you to sync files between your computer and your devices, then you would be able to access the same files on both. Now, we're a little bit like, I'm explaining a lot of details and not in a very coherent order. I'm gonna give you another piece of information that's gonna be useful, and you'll probably forget where you found it in this video. Sorry about that. if you do sync your notes between your desktop or multiple computers or your phone or whatever, the thing you have to keep in mind is that it's not going to pick up the changes to your notes in any of your instances of Logseq automatically, at least as far as I've understood. What you have to do is click, where is it? There is a refresh command. Maybe if it's in Control-Shift-P, refresh. Where is it? I swear there's some kind of refresh command somewhere that you need to use. There's like a refresh or a reindex. Let me check the settings. It might be like Control-R even. So let's go to keyboard shortcuts. So let's see. I bet I can't search this page, can I? No. Refresh, refresh, refresh. Does somebody see it? Refresh, refresh. Where are you? Rebuild search index. That's one thing you might need. It should be at the top of the menu, is it not? Am I looking at the wrong one? Is that what's happening? We go to the journals page, ellipsis. Where is it? If I click on a page and go to the list. Ah, you're not on a local folder. You're right about that. Thanks, Ashraz. Okay, I'm dealing with a graph that's not real. So I should probably do this. All right, so here's what you should do. If you want to start using Logseq, don't do what I'm doing and just like edit a bunch of stuff in this like tutorial thing. Click add a graph. It will let you pick a local folder location. Okay, and before I do that, let me do one other thing because I wanted to show you this. I'm gonna go to settings and editor, preferred file format. Click that and then select org instead if you want it to be org file format. You can also change the preferred workflow, which is now or later or to do versus doing. And you can also change the date format for what the journal days are written as. But the thing is, that's just like the way they're presented. It's actually not what's stored in the file, so you don't have to worry about it being written in the files wrong. But anyway, we want to set this to org because we want to see how this looks when we save those files out. Now, I'm going to choose a folder to save all this stuff in. And it's going to pop up a file selection dialog. I'm going to go into my home folder, and then I will create a new folder called Logseq Notes. Create. And then I'll go, man, I don't know why this thing is so huge. I blame EXWM. I'll click OK. And now I've got a brand new graph, which is effectively a folder of files on my hard disk that will be saved from all the things that I'm putting in. Everything's blank now. I don't have any pages. It's sort of just like the built-in pages. I have my my journals page, and I can start typing things all over again, like hello, system crafters. Well, no exclamation point. Okay. So now we've got a, excuse me, system crafters page. Great. So if I were to go into the folder that I just created inside of Emacs, let me just go open up that folder really quick. I'll go into Logseq Notes, go into Pages. There's not contents, journals. Yeah, my journal file is here. It's interesting that the page isn't there. Maybe because I didn't type anything in it. Let's go back there. Here is a note. And to do, here is a task. Oh, I forgot to mention about the task priorities. Yeah, you can set task priorities like with /A/B, etc. Okay, so we've got that. This should be saved now. And I can go back into the folder once again. Logseq Notes, Pages. And now there's a System Crafters page here, systemcrafters.org. Open it up, and it actually does have the notes here, and it puts it in org format, the task information, etc. So if I actually think that the on-disk storage and the features of Logseq are actually more attuned to org mode, because Markdown doesn't have the concept of to-dos. But obviously, Logseq is using the org mode syntax for a to-do item with its state and the priority, etc. So there's a lot of connection to org mode and Emacs here with this tool. So if you wanted to, you could create notes inside of Logseq and then go into Emacs and edit them. However, if you start doing things like embeds, then things get a little bit more dicey. So if I were to, let's see, let's create an, well, I'll say Control K, Emacs from scratch. I'm creating a page called Emacs from scratch, videos, you know, episode 1. Okay, whatever. So let's go back. I'm gonna use control left square bracket, and then I'm gonna embed that page here, or even the node. Let's say embed open what's it, parentheses videos. Yeah. Wow. Why did they just jump to it? Let's do that again. Here we are. Videos. Hello. All right. So now it's got an embed here for that. This should be saved. If I go back into the file, you can see here that Emacs reloaded the file, but you see there's this embed syntax here. And that's not very helpful to you as an org mode user, because now you've got this top level heading with this ugly embed syntax. Well, it's only ugly because it doesn't really belong in an org mode file. So if you want to use Logseq and Emacs together to edit these org files, you can do it, but you just have to kind of deal with the fact that sometimes you're going to have things that look like this. Fade says, I'm late, but I don't see the value in this system for people who already have a lot of their computing life in Emacs. Well, that's true. You may not have it may not have a lot of value for you if you already have a really good workflow with Emacs in org mode or org roam. But it is interesting that it does have, a good desktop app, a good mobile app, and you can sync plain text files between them. So it's kind of like what the Emacs org mode experience could be like if you had an actual legitimate Emacs running on Android or iOS, where you could have the full Emacs experience and have sort of like a more mobile-friendly usage pattern. It would be awesome if we could get actual Emacs on mobile devices without having to resort to installing Linux on your phone. But today we don't have that. So the next best thing would be having a tool that is very similar in a lot of ways, but isn't actually Emacs itself. So for me, I think having all this stuff available on my phone would be pretty helpful. All right. Same thing, if you go into the journals folder, you have access to the journals, and you can see there's a link here. And the link syntax is the link, if you see down in the echo area, it says link system crafters. I don't think that's actually a real link. See, Control C, Control L. Yeah, it just says link system crafters. There's no link syntax or anything. So not a legitimate link as far as org mode is concerned. So that's another way that it won't actually line up correctly if you're trying to use Emacs to edit files made with Logseq. See you, Ashraz. Thomas says, get inspired and then clone the best stuff that might be missing in your default tool like Emacs. That would be the ideal thing. And I think the org roam folks are trying to do that in a lot of ways, but having a good mobile experience is something that can't be easily cloned. If you've ever used Orgsly before, why am I not able to kill this buffer? There we go. If you've ever used Orgsly before, well, if you're like me, you've probably found it to be not exactly what you were looking for. I kind of like to be able to write prose in my org mode files, the kind of longer text, and have it be, formatted and stuff. And Orgsly is nice for headings and to-do items, but it's not so nice for document editing, in my experience. Okay, what is this contents file, I wonder? It doesn't have anything in there. So back to Logseq. So yes, the reason why we got here to begin with is because I was telling you about the fact that you need to, excuse me, refresh your files inside of the desktop app or the mobile app if you're syncing them between your devices. So if you click here, the name of your graph, they call the folder basically a graph. There is a refresh and re-index command. I think refresh may be the only thing that you need to do. Import changes from local files. Yeah, re-index is like rebuilding the entire thing, and I think you should only do that if you're making like settings changes to your graph. But if you sync files between two devices and you want to make sure that everything in your Logseq program is up to date, you got to click refresh to make that happen. Fade says text input is terrible on mobile devices. That seems to be a fact of the input architecture. I think a org Logseq mode would be the perfect bridge between Roam on Emacs and Android. There actually is something like that. Let's take a look. Org mode Logseq. I saw a couple packages actually. Ooh, that's interesting. So They wrote an OCaml-based parser for org mode and markdown files. Is this really OCaml or is it like Reason? Because it's in JavaScript. Let's see. Just out of my own curiosity now. Oh, it has an OPAM file, so maybe it really is. Okay, so it is OCaml, after all. Using OCaml and Angstrom. I don't know what that is. All right. Let's see. There is definitely a package. Let's see, is it org Logseq? Yeah, here's one. There's two, actually. Okay, so script for navigating and editing Logseq files using Emacs. I don't know exactly what it does. Does it open it in Logseq or is it open in Emacs? Oh wow, okay, that's not really a package in my opinion. That's a configuration snippet. Okay, what does this one do? Got some more things, new page. Okay, so this definitely seems like it gives you the ability to use Emacs to create pages in for Logseq. It just basically drop them into the folder structure. ID overlays. I mean, it's kind of nice if you have the ability in Emacs to sort of create files that are compatible with Logseq, and then you can use that for mobile. Nice language choice. Yeah, OCaml's pretty dope. All right, let me put that link in the show notes, actually. We probably want to have that in there. Where is my... There we go. Mobile editor to things like orgzly. Apparently I didn't finish that thought. All right, so... Let me see. We put this... Oh. Let's get out of this mode. All right. Notes. Let me drop this in and then we'll go back to the presentation because I don't want to like give away the whole result of this just yet. Org present. Okay, cool. So like I said, create your own graph and then just do things in daily logging. Just write all your notes and thoughts and tasks out in the daily log in the journal basically, and link them to other topic notes. And then if you want to write information in your topic notes, like let's say, you know, Lisp. If you have a note called Lisp, maybe you have some reference information in there in high-level description, but the value really is more in the things you write elsewhere that are linked to Lisp and not all the stuff you put in the Lisp page itself. Same thing with org-roam. I mean, we talked about this kind of thing before in streams and in videos, but now you have an app that sort of replicates that whole thing and gives you a polished experience, which has its own interesting aspects. So we pretty much covered all these things. So let's talk about whether Logseq is better than Emacs in org mode or org-roam. And it really just depends on your use case. And like we showed, that it is possible that you can actually use them together if you want to. You could, use Logseq to edit your org files on the go, but it might require only using a subset of org features. So if you're primarily using Emacs to edit your org files, there are a couple of restrictions. You have to actually have the same folder structure that Logseq expects, unless in the configuration you can change all that. I'm not sure. And then you probably can't use certain aspects of org's syntax, like some extra things in the header lines, or, I think properties are probably fine, but other things may not be so fine. Oh, I forgot to mention. Let me show you this. You can do source blocks. You can't execute them, but you can do source blocks. So for instance, if I were to go into, let's say, Control K, come on, Control K, scheme. No, that's not what I typed. Control K, scheme. New page, scheme. Okay. Code examples. Now, let's see. Yeah, that source. Okay, so sort of like org tempo blocks. If you do an open brace and source, it gives you basically org mode source block syntax. And I think if I were to type in scheme at the end of this, it would make it a scheme block. So define sum func x, y, then plus x, y. Now, if I go out of there, it will actually have a syntax highlighted block with the code in there. So you can have code blocks in here, and it actually does give you indentation for code blocks, but not any kind of completions or anything. But it is nice to have syntax highlighting and the ability to type directly in the block to edit the samples. It's not just like a pretty display. It's something you can edit and add things to. So kind of nice to have, excuse me, have that functionality. And I believe that if you go into the file in Emacs, let's see, it will be a, whoa, okay, that's not what I expected. Excuse me. It will put the begin source right at the heading, and I don't think org likes that. So if I were to go change that, how would I fix that? Let's see. Let's put some text before the block. Hey. Okay, so if you want to put a second new line or a new line in, you can press Shift Enter inside the edit mode. Okay, here's an example. All right, so let me go back now into the file and see if it looks right. All right, so that looks right. So you can see that it actually org did parse that correctly. So you got to be a little bit careful with how you write your org files, either in, well, how you write your stuff in Logseq versus writing it in Emacs. But it is possible to use them both together if you wanted to. And you can also use Logseq primarily, but sometimes make edits from within Emacs, or you could even use Emacs agenda views potentially to pull in tasks from different files from Logseq, but maybe that's more complicated than it needs to be. But I think there's some downsides to Logseq, and probably people who've been chatting have also mentioned a few that I haven't seen yet. But let's say you don't really get the benefit of your comfortable Emacs setup. So if you spend a lot of time trying to customize your Emacs workflow and have all your key binding set up a certain way, you know, you're used to switching buffers a certain way or editing files, maybe you have evil mode set up, which I think there is a Vim plugin for Logseq, but that's sort of beside the point. You're jumping to a separate program and your muscle memory is completely gone. Like, you can't really do the same things anymore. You have to think of a completely different set of key bindings. And it's not great if you spend most of your time in Emacs like I do, like just working on projects all day. So probably the way that I would use it if I were to do this is only use Logseq for sort of like thinking and writing tasks down to some degree, things that I might want to sync between devices. But then writing actual documents, I'd probably write them in Emacs with org mode, like my show notes for videos or books or articles or whatever. I might write that in Emacs instead. But still, it's not ideal. Like, it'd be better to have all the same kind of functionality in Emacs. And it's probably possible to replicate a lot of it with like org transclusion and some of the other features of org roam. But you know, you would need to do a lot of work to make that smooth, and then you would need to be able to make it work on mobile as well if that's something you wanted. If you don't care about mobile, then org roam is great. You don't need to worry about anything, really. You can get a lot of the same functionality, plus all the benefits of org mode and Emacs. Now, you also don't get to generate agenda views from your tasks. Instead, you have to concoct your own task workflow. That was before I remembered about queries. So, you know, this is not 100% true. Queries can help, or Logseq queries can help. So it is possible to build your own sort of agenda views more or less inside of Logseq. So if you wanted to prioritize using Logseq, you could do a lot of the same things, I think. Not really compatible with org roam if you want to use Emacs to edit notes primarily on the desktop. So if you want to have this kind of wiki style system in Emacs and also use Logseq on mobile, you can't do it because they're not compatible the way they store things. Tomas says, the Logseq UI should have a way to open the current page node in Emacs for more advanced text editing purposes. I think you can do that. So if you go into, where is it? Well, if there's not a way to do it like in the box, I'm sure there's a plugin for that. We'll look at the plugin list in just a second and see what's in there. Also, perhaps not as easy to export your notes as a website, which is kind of debatable because there is functionality for this, but I don't know how like built in it is. And I've seen other extensions for like exporting it to a Hugo site where you kind of need a separate step to publish. But in Emacs even, there's a lot of cases where you need a separate program to take org's export to HTML and then turn it into a website. So maybe there's like a bit of a draw there. The fact that you can do it with Logseq is kind of nice, but at least with org mode, you have a lot more control over how the end result looks, and it doesn't seem like you've published your notebook to the web. It can be more like a normal website. Also, no org babble, code execution, etc. Execution. Or is there? Let's take a look in just a second. Is there any other thoughts? Like, what are the other things you might think are downsides to Logseq versus Emacs that aren't already covered here? Let me check the chat and see if I missed anything. Oh, templates. We need to look at templates, and we need to look at the plugin system. Those are two things we should look at before we leave. So remind me. So Duck says there's an open with default app option, but for me, it just opens the text editor. So, table handling. Thanks, Fade. Yeah, table handling. You can do tables in Logseq, but it probably is not as rich as org mode. So if I drop down here, I mean, this is not the right place to do this, but we're going to do it anyway. So tables / table, query table function. There is a way to do tables here. Link, upload an asset, which could be kind of nice. So what is a query table function? Come on. Yeah, okay, that was the thing we saw before. So the website, I think there is something for tables. Table. So I don't want queries, I just want editing tables. But maybe queries are the only way to do that. Okay. Tables with markdown syntax, thanks, N. Okay, let's take a look at that really quick. Name, scheme, let's see, standard version, URL. So if I were to drop down to another, okay. So basically just creates a table like that. And if I were to use shift enter, let's see, Gambit, standard version. I think they're like, R7RS now, URL, HTTPS, Gambit, scheme.org. Okay, so yeah, you can make tables, but it's not necessarily like org. Duck says having to shift enter is annoying though. There's another feature for that which could be useful. So there is something called document mode, which makes this look more like a document and less like a tree. And if you go into, let's see, there's also presentation mode, but I haven't really tried that very much. In the key bindings, keyboard shortcuts, where is it? Might be TD. Let's try that. So if I go back into the document, come on. And then I get out of the block and type TD. Yeah, it turns on document mode. And I think that what happens here is you can just press enter and keep going, like Guile, R7RS, HTTPS, guile.gnu.org. I think that's the address. And you can do whatever you want. So you can have more entries, and then you can arrow out of the thing. You can arrow all the way through the document. So if you want to edit it more like a document, you can turn on the document mode. They got a little icon here apparently that tells you what you can do with it too. So that's cool. So you can write like a whole block as prose instead of making it a bunch of nodes instead. If I click that, does it go away? Yeah, okay, cool. So that's something you can do too, the whole document mode. What was I talking about before? Tables. Okay, so yeah, tables are pretty basic. You can't even sort them, it looks like. All right, so templates, another interesting thing here, templates. So let's take a look at the docs for that because I don't remember the syntax for this, but you can make templates which are kind of like capture templates in a way. So you can make a block and its children as a template for reuse purposes. Let's make a meeting note template as a block for reuse. They have some special syntax for certain things like getting the day's date, which could be nice for automatically tagging the note for the current day so it shows up as a link in your journal. What else? You can set some properties. or a query, you can put a query inside of the template. So if you want to have like a to-do item template, you could put that into, or you could have a template that has a query for to-do items or any other kinds of things that you want to query. And then you turn the node into a template by right-clicking the little bullet and creating a template from it. Excuse me. Let me see. Okay, here's the variables. So you kind of want to have variables today, yesterday, tomorrow, time, current page, dates. So you can say like, last Friday, or maybe some other kind of, natural language date range. There's some other properties you can set for, configuring how the template gets used, which is kind of interesting. So let's try that out really quickly. Excuse me. So if I were to say, let's create a new document called workflow. And let's see, planning template, tasks, what else? Goals. I can try to move that up. I don't remember the key for moving it. Control Shift arrow, Alt Shift arrow. There we go. Alt Shift arrow. Goals, tasks, etc., whatever. Let's see, deadline. I don't know. So like that could be a planning template. So if I were to right click on this dot, I can click make template, call it planning, and include the parent block in the template. Maybe I don't want to include the parent block in the template, so I'm gonna click submit. Okay, so now it's save this as a template. And if I want to go into, let's say, my my journal for the day, whoops, I can say /template, press enter, and then pick the name of the template that I want to put in. So then that will put in like the list of items. Because I told it not to put in the parent block, it actually dropped them in directly. So that could be a useful way to like add a few different items in for a new page or for anything you want to put in for any document. So, and like it mentioned in the documentation, there's all these things like this today syntax. So if I were to go back to that file, let's see if I can go back to workflow. Whoa, wrong. Workflow. And then let's say, let's include the parent. How about this? Let's change that. Hey, go down right there. Okay, 4, and then paste in the today's date. And then now if I go back to journals, I can just delete these and then type template and then planning, and then it will just insert the date for today, but you can put this in any other document because it's just gonna put in today's date. So that's kind of nice to have templates for that. In fact, you can also go into your settings and edit the configuration to make that your daily template. So there's not a UI setting for this yet. There probably will be in the future, but right now you have to actually go edit your configuration file. And there's a default templates setting for journals. When creating a new journal page, the app will use your template. If there is one, you only need to input your template name here. I think I called it planning. So if I save that, I guess it's saved automatically. Go back, and I wonder if it works if I jump to a future day. Like, let's say if I were to say May, well, let's see, date. Today, yesterday, can I say tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. If I go to tomorrow, does it use the planning template? No. I think it only does that whenever that day becomes active. So on May 7th, it would actually create that day with that template that I had used before. So it's something you can use for, having your daily planning for whatever it is that you like to do to plan your day or create your tasks, that kind of thing. So it could be pretty useful for that. It's not exactly like capture templates because it doesn't have prompts, apparently. I don't think there's a way for it to prompt you for things. So not exactly the same, and you probably can't invoke it from outside the program. But it's good for just, general workflow patterns that you have, so not bad. For some reason, when I switched workspaces, the font zooming is getting lost. I don't know if it's a bug or something in the program. All right. So I also mentioned I wanted to look at the extensions. So if I go into, there's a plugins entry here in the ellipsis menu. If I click plugins, says plugins can access your graph in your local files, blah, 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 blah. They're working on like access control, but now they're basically saying it's on you if you install something that either deletes your files or steals your data. So, you've been warned. By default, there's no plugins visible here, but if you click on Marketplace, it will give you a listing of all possible plugins. There is a calendar, which I don't really know what it does, but maybe it has a screenshot. Okay, that's kind of cool. So if you click the little calendar, it will tell you the days that you have journal entries for, so you can kind of see it visually and go look at it. I would actually install that. That's pretty cool. So if I click install, then it's going to install that for me. I don't have to do I don't have to do anything. I think you have to restart the program before those plugins show up, though. So if I were to kill this program and then run Logseq again, then I should have the little calendar up here now. Yeah, you see the little calendar? What's that? Today's journal? If I click that, then it had the listing for the 7th, which I created already, and then back to the 6th, which is today. So that's how easy it is to install a plugin. Kind of nice to have the ability to just add extra functionality like that. You can also disable it. What is that? Cool. It has like support links. Nice. Uninstall and you can turn off update checks. Does it have settings? Oh, cool. Even has a whole settings UI, which I kind of like. Marketplace, what else is in here? Tabs, you can have a tab view. Hey, thanks a lot, Tomas. I really appreciate the donation super chat. He says, I was just about to check Logseq out again this weekend. It's so much more convenient watching you walk through the features. Yeah, this is all the stuff that I've learned just from this week.
I was just about to check Logseq out again this weekend, but it's so much more convenient watching you walk through the features.
You have a very nice voice, I have to say. Whatever thing that just read that out loud. Sorry for that. Anyway, I've only learned this stuff this week, and also from watching a couple YouTube videos and just reading the documentation. So I think there's a lot more that I don't know yet, but I'm kind of curious to keep playing around with it to learn some more things. So I might make a couple videos on it at some point. We'll see how that goes. Okay, there seems to be a mind mapping plugin, which I don't really know why you would need it if you have the graph view, but maybe it has some added benefits. But if you like mind mapping, then you have that there. Bullet threading, I guess it's just a UI thing. A heat map for how many blocks you created that day. So if you're obsessed with your GitHub contribution graph, you can do the same thing inside of your Logseq. I wonder if these work on mobile. Kind of doubt it, but maybe they do. Tomas says, just like my voice, exactly. Yeah, I bet. Eric says, what did I miss in the last 40 minutes? Oh, yeah, we all decided to switch to Logseq. We're not going to use Emacs anymore. That's what happened. There's a table editor for Markdown. There's a to-do master. Render a progress bar on to-do markers based on the rendering position. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Doc view exporter, a Todoist plugin. That's cool. If you can kind of link this up to Todoist. Weird. Is it like pulling the UI for Todoist into... Oh, okay, it's like a side-by-side. All right, cool. Pablo says, I just joined. Is this like a front end for an org mode system? Sort of. It is a note-taking tool that can write out its note format to org mode files, but it's not exactly like a front end for org mode per se. It can sort of be used like that, but it's not really meant to be used like that. Drake says, I'm interested in your thoughts as someone who currently uses Logseq and recently switched from Vim to Emacs. Emacs has a long history in being really good for knowledge management tasks with org mode, etc. But Logseq is kind of interesting if you are more used to using apps for this purpose, especially if you like to do things on mobile. But Emacs has got a lot of functionality and a lot of packages that are really, really useful. So I don't know. It's worth digging into Emacs to see how much further you can get with it if you don't need a lot of the things that Logseq supports. All right, so let's see. Vim shortcuts. So that does have like a Vim-like operation. I don't know if that's just like a key binding layout that you can install. Table of contents plugin where you can generate a table of contents. I don't think you need that though, because there is something in this little side view called contents where I believe, Maybe this is different. Okay, so I assumed this was a table of contents thing, but actually maybe what this is like your index. So you can put whatever you want in here. I'm guessing that's what this is. Now that I'm sort of, it's dawning on me. So if you wanted to have certain pages that are always accessible, like your root pages, like let's say projects, what happened? The hovering thing is killing me. References, I don't know, things like that. Workflow. You can have this in your contents list and just sort of pull it up really quickly. I'm guessing, yeah. So Drake says, yeah, contents is your index. So now I'm finally realizing what that's there for. But that's cool. It's pretty useful, I think. I usually make that kind of thing myself, so it's cool that it's a core feature of the program. Where was I? The extensions list. Let me pop up a little. All right, so now I'll go back to plugins, marketplace. What else I got here? Calendar plugin. Sync your Logseq daily note with your Google, iCloud, or Outlook calendar. That's kind of interesting. Habit tracker. That could be useful. Block movement. That actually is something that I found really quickly to be not so easy. Like if org mode has this concept of refiling headings to another file, Logseq doesn't really give you the ability to do that out of the box. You have to like copy and paste the block, which is hard if the block has a lot of stuff in it because you might lose things. But apparently this plugin gives you the ability to say, okay, I want to move this particular block to some other page or a journal, etc. That could be very useful, I think. Gun says, I think I'll stay with Emacs. Just tried to yay the OR package. Took ages to compile a shitload of dependencies and failed. Yeah, well, there's a lot of weird technology components that are used to make this thing. So I imagine it's easier if you just use Flatpak to install it. Hyder says, yesterday I just converted my org roam notes to web pages. Might have to start over with Logseq. No, if you went to that level of trouble with org roam, you probably should just use org roam because, you don't want to waste the effort that you made there. Ed says, it looks like there is a preference for turning off the tooltip pop-up thing. Yeah, I think I should do that because it's driving me nuts. All right, let's see. Anything else that seems super interesting? Imager upload, okay. Mermaid diagrams, like different kinds of graphs, I think it would be kind of useful. A milestone in the calendar, don't know what that's for. A Logseq plugin that reads Telegram chat and pulls messages into the daily journal. I guess if you are using Telegram a lot, that could be useful for you. Pomodoro timer. That is something I would definitely use as something to help you with focusing on writing for some amount of time. Tweet plugin where you can tweet from within Logseq. I mean, you get to the point where it's like, just like Emacs, you're gonna have plugins for doing anything in there. So one thing I would like though is if there was a plugin that made it easy for you to author tweets in the program and tell you how many characters you have left and like make tweet threads and then be able to tweet it from the program. That could be useful. Hey Luis, nice to see you. Have I looked at the PDF highlighter feature? I have not. I did not know it had one. Gun says, isn't Clojure a Lisp-like front end to the Java VM? Yeah, something like that. Benoit says, Orgram is my alternative to Evernote. Yeah, it's way better than Evernote. Pablo says, that's some sunk cost fallacy. Well, I think in Emacs, you do deal with a lot of sunk cost fallacy because you spend so much time configuring your environment that you're like, well, maybe there's another tool that would be better for something that I do. And I just I'm so embedded in Emacs now that it's hard to switch. But sometimes you just gotta try other things. That's why I'm gonna try using Sway for a little while, or other Wayland window managers. Let's see, carousel, lock screen, music notation. That's kind of interesting. If you're a composer and you want to write music notation inside your notes, cool. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff here. Oh, that was the end of it. Good. Okay. To do exploder, whatever. All right. So the other thing you can find in the list of plugins is the themes. So there's a lot of stuff here. I think Eric said use dev theme. Let's see. Does it have a dark theme? Yeah, that looks kind of nice. Let's install that one. How do I do that? It's right there, install. Okay, so I'm gonna install the theme and then I'm gonna try to switch to it. Gun says there's a lot of Node.js in the dependencies. Yeah, that's because it uses Electron for the application shell, because it's a web app, basically. All right, so we've installed that. Oh, and it already enabled it, which is kind of nice. So this already looks way better than the solarized theme that we were using before. So if you want it to look a bit different, you can easily do that by just installing a new theme. So something to keep in mind. Pablo says, not to distract from Logseq, but I went the sway route for Wayland, and I kind of regret leaving awesome WM. It's just not as configurable. Yeah, I expect to not have as much stuff as not have as like a smooth workflow as I have with EXWM, but EXWM is annoying me in a few ways that make me want to try another window manager. I did try going to Stump WM for a little while and wasn't really worth it, even though Stump is pretty cool. But yeah, we're gonna try some new things in a little while. Very Drunk Oni says, if you're interested in using Sway, keep in mind that Sway currently only supports screen capture in OBS and no window capture yet. Yeah, I don't really use window capture, so that's not a problem for me. But thanks for mentioning it. OBS support is something that obviously matters a lot to me because I stream and make videos. So I have to make sure that whatever I decide to use is going to work fine with OBS. So it is a consideration. All right, anything else that I wanted to say about this today? So I guess really the bottom line is that the tool is worth checking out. If you like tools like this where it gives you free reign to organize things and to sort of think about how you want to represent the information that you need to store, or organize your projects, or manage your tasks, definitely worth trying it out. But if you are sort of a diehard Emacs user, you're probably going to say that it doesn't do enough of the things that you need and it's not going to be worth it. And I might come to that conclusion as well, but I'm going to try it for a couple weeks and see how I feel about it. And then if I decide I don't want to use it, I'm going to try to figure out how I can replicate some of the same benefits back in org Rome. So it might benefit you for me to do this so that I can make another video saying, oh, here's how to do all the same things. So we'll see exactly whether that works or not. And it definitely kind of gives me a different way to think about how I want to store all of my stuff. And like I was mentioning before, the outliner approach kind of helps me to break down my ideas in a way that I have a harder time doing in org mode. So it could be useful for certain things. It may not be useful for everything, but it might be useful for certain types of thinking tasks. And like I said, it's very possible I'll adapt some of the ideas from it back into my own org configuration. So that's Logseq. I have enjoyed using it. And hopefully if you try it, you'll enjoy it too. But let me know in the chat or in the comments or wherever else that you can find me what you think about it. And definitely, keep an eye on the project because I'm really curious to see where it will go from here. I hope that they will stick to their free software approach and also the approach of primarily using text formats like org or markdown for storing all the data, because I feel like that is the best way to give you freedom to try this tool, use it for a while, and then change your mind if you want to and use some other tool instead. But as we saw, there are some, Logseq specific things that it puts in those files, so you might have to rip those out somehow. But at least you do have the choice if you want to. There's no some proprietary format you have to deal with. Luis says, do you plan to release a video explaining how you use tab bar instead of purse mode? I should do that, yeah. Benoit says you can always create eLisp to migrate back to org Rome. Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate all the feedback and the attention. And like I said, let me know what you think about it. And if you are interested in hearing more about Logseq, if you want to see me make some videos about it, also let me know that too, because I would be interested in making some videos on it and other similar tools just as a way to compare and contrast what we've done so far with Emacs. So definitely let me know. All right, folks, thanks so much for being here today. And until next time, happy hacking. We'll see you.